If you know anything about D&D, you understand that the most important rule is that the DM is on the player's side. Well, this is a story about a DM who did not understand that concept. Before we get into this video, I want to thank today's sponsor, Elderbrain. Their new adventure, Crown of the Oathbreaker, is a sandbox adventure campaign for characters leveled 5 to 12, taking the players on a journey from a cursed kingdom to the Fey Realm, the Shadow Realm, and even the depths of hell in their quest to save the crown and the land. Now, before you think this is just another adventure module, you should know that Crown of the Oathbreaker also comes with 36 new subclasses, 105 illustrated NPCs, 34 new items, 19 new monsters, 15 new spells, and 25 new dungeon maps. Made by the expert team behind Year of Rogue Dragons and packed with loads of maps, scenes, monsters, items, and more, this is going to be a very high quality adventure for you and your party. So after this video, crab walk down to the link in the description, roll post. So this was my first time playing D&D. It went poorly. Some quick background. Now, I'm a shy and reserved person who has a very hard time coming out of my shell. I was vaguely familiar with D&D as my online friends were into it, and I had bumped into Critical Role on Twitch, so I had a basic idea of the rules if nothing else. So the group consisted of 4 players and the DM. Let's call him Aaron. The players were the DM's girlfriend, let's call her Katie, my brother, we'll call him Josh, and my brother's wife, who we will call Emma. We played Lost Mines of Phandelver. Josh called me up one day and asked if I would be interested in playing D&D, as some of his church friends were wanting to get a group together. Only the DM had played before, and the other girls were not familiar with D&D at all. I asked Josh if everyone knew what they were playing, and I was told that we had a druid, rogue, and fighter. I spent a few days looking up beginner videos on YouTube, checked out a player's handbook from the library, and generally tried to absorb everything I could and set some realistic expectations. I'm good at memorizing things, so I felt comfortable quickly. I came up with a burly 6'3" Turtle Tempest Cleric. Imagine the Pokemon Blastoise. The idea was to be a tank and a healer to help the group. I got in contact with the DM and told him what I wanted to play. He okayed it and said to bring my sheet to session 0. The DM, Aaron, was a nice enough guy. College age, his dad had just passed away from cancer and he was stressed with prep for law school. He was a bit of a memer/jokester, and during all these events I kept in mind that he may have not been in a good headspace. He told us that he had a little mini quest that wouldn't carry over, just to familiarize us. We all appeared in a tavern with some angry patrons who tried picking fights with my character. Without rolls, the DM said, they pick up chairs and bottles to attack you. Okay, cool, I thought. Combat tutorial. Nope. The DM immediately told us as we rolled initiative that these enemies were far too high level and we stood no chance in a fight. I rolled highest, so I went first. I cast Shield of Faith. Walk between them and my allies with my metal shield raised and take the dodge action. The DM had the 3 patrons and the barkeep attack me. 18 to hit, he said confidently. That doesn't hit, I replied, and he just sort of frowned and rolled again. 20 to hit, he said smiling. Doesn't hit. At this point, he asked to see my character sheet. With Shield of Faith plus my metal shield, my AC was 21. He handed back my sheet and continued to attack. Nothing hit. My allies managed to find a secret door and we all fled, my turtle having avoided 7 attacks. We played through the rest of the session 0, doing a nonsensical puzzle and escaping and finishing the session. As the session 0 closed, the DM told me I had an interesting character. I asked if it was too strong, and said that I could play something else if he needed me to. I intended for my character to be powerful, but I was not trying to power game. He said that it was fine and not to worry about it. It was certainly not fine, and that's where it all began. Pause post. Okay, so far this is salvageable. The DM doesn't seem to fully understand that he's supposed to be the player's ally, not enemy. The DM is supposed to lead the players through an adventure, not throw impossible enemies at the party in hopes that they die. I understand that the DM is meant to throw challenges at the party, but the first encounter being an impossible fight is a terrible choice for a Session 0 if they are new players who would think it's a combat tutorial. I'm going to withhold any further judgment though, as it sounds a lot like the worst is yet to come. Roll post. Session 1 comes along and we all get our little intro. In mine, a little goblin merchant came up to me before I reached the group and tried to sell me a magic ring for a suspiciously low price. Playing to my character, who is very paranoid but kind, I politely gave him money but did not take or touch the ring. Aaron looks visibly dejected and I felt kind of bad but continued on. We continue on, doing normal Lost Mines of Phandelver things. Got ambushed on the road, our Emma's rogue went down, fighter killed things, all good. Except our dumb asses ignored the fleeing goblins and continued to Phandalin. There, all of the NPCs treated the party nicely, except my character, who they all visibly mistrusted according to the DM. Well, whatever I suppose, I'm a big scary turtle, it makes sense. We got into a fight with the red brands at level 1, Emma went down again in one hit, but then the DM turned all of them to me. 14 consecutive misses and one very annoyed DM later, we had dragged Emma Rogue safely to the wagon and fled the red brands. Throughout the following sessions, my character never found anything of worth. No gold, items, or anything. My only magic item was a magic coin shared to me by Katie's druid. The DM consistently asked me to make checks for random things like not tripping when the rest of the party had navigated the same area without rolls. He would make snide comments in my direction and play it off as joking around. And whenever there was combat, the enemies would almost exclusively attack me and nobody else. Which, cool, I'm a tank, it's my job. But it felt a bit more competitive than that, like Aaron was trying to make a point. It also didn't help that I was a Tempest cleric, so I had the ability to nuke all of the mobs by maxing my thunder damage whenever they grouped up, which visibly frustrated Aaron, and would be met with further retaliation. My only magic item vanished in a dungeon, only to be found later in the loot chest by the DM's girlfriend Katie, who had given it to me the first time and handed it right back without prompting, much to Aaron's annoyance. NPCs were verbally hostile to my character or straight up ignored me, so I could only really RP with the other players. At this point, I was getting too uncomfortable to ask Aaron directly if there was a problem, but being shy and hating conflict, I asked Josh if Aaron was normally like this or if it was just the RP. He assured me that it was just RP, and Aaron took some time to get used to. Pause post. I feel offended, actually, that the DM is skilled enough to keep the whole party coming back to his game every time they play, which is no easy task. All of the organization, writing, improv, and emotional intelligence required to be a good DM, and if the whole party keeps coming back, then he must be really good, especially given that they are all new players. If they were D&D starved veterans, then they may sometimes play for too long in places they shouldn't, but these are new players. It takes a skilled DM to hook new people on D&D and keep them coming back after that first game. So the fact that he can keep delivering means he has insane potential as a DM, but is squandering it to be petty towards a player who did nothing wrong, perpetually fighting a completely unnecessary battle that only damages his reputation and his players' enjoyment. We are getting right to the end of the story here, so we will see how this ends. Roll post. In the manor house, we got stuck in a trap room trying to chase the fleeing wizard. It was a stone room with a ceiling that would lower continuously to crush us unless we pulled levers to reset it. We tried everything we could with no success for the better part of 30 minutes, a gloating Aaron teasing us all the while. I then asked if I could cast Shatter to try and break down the stone door. Aaron dismissively told me that the spell wouldn't cast, nor would any of my magic within that room. So after 45 minutes and the whole party frustrated, the room just opened by itself, and we continued. For the rest of our sessions, the only item my character received was an evil-looking axe. which I didn't even bother attuning, much to Aaron's annoyance. When asked why, I said because it looks evil, and my paranoid character believes it most likely holds a curse. At that point, Aaron laughed and told me yes, it was cursed, that it would cause me, the unstoppable tank, to go berserk and attack my party. Which would have been terrible, as at that level my character could have one-hit KO'd the entire party if they failed their saving throw. He then joked about how it was only fair since I avoided his cursed ring he had tried to give me at level 1, which would have permanently lowered my AC by 5. I was not surprised at this point, but did my best to hide my frustration. The rest of the party didn't say anything and it didn't get too tense, but it completely shattered the idea that I was imagining it. Thankfully, the games were fizzling out by this point, as Katie and Emma were getting bored with D&D and I was close to quitting. We had a final session where all the wizard, a doppelganger, and a shadow demon focused my then level 5 character while the party stood back and killed them. We were then rewarded with hundreds of thousands of gold, which Aaron was sure to remind us was worthless. My character found the deck of many things, and I decided to just leave it behind, and we wrapped up the campaign with a short epilogue. We played a total of 8 sessions. Shortly after the campaign, Eric and Katie broke up, and Josh and Emma didn't have any interest in playing. I didn't want to play anymore either, but after 6 months or so, I decided to try DMing for a completely new group. Fast forward almost 2 years later, and my players just hit level 10 after 70 sessions, and I adore the collaborative effort this game can be. TLDR, overly competitive DM doesn't like newbie's character, and actively tries to nerf it with cursed items before trying to TPK the group via PvP. End post. And there it is. There was so much potential for a truly great campaign, but pettiness did it in. Between the DM focusing OP, ironically making OP the main character of every battle, and the constant belittling and clearly hostile behavior towards OP, anyone would get uncomfortable and bored. Good on them for quitting, and good on OP for learning from this experience and having a great campaign with new friends. Because I'm in a good mood, I think we have time for a bonus post. Roll post. So I've been playing D&D roughly since 2007. My first ever session, I had no idea how to play and died in 10 minutes. That aside, I have a close group of friends and we usually have played every weekend now for almost 6 years. When I was still allowed the luxury of being a player, there was a player I will call Max. My DM will be named DM. So I had played many homebrew games with this group of people. There were 5 of us consistent, 1 who sometimes came. I always had some issues with Max. What I really didn't like was the DM's lack of what I would consider backbone. The DM is an incredibly friendly guy and an amazing friend, so I understand how this happened with him. While playing a long last game of Spelljammer converted to 5e, I noticed a very annoying habit of Max. He had a constant need to change out his PCs whenever he would level up. He would always switch around to new PCs because something stronger than what he was using. He had an 8th level Warlock Pact of the Tome. This Warlock spent 100 years collecting and writing down every single ritual. Now, I'm no stranger to making the strongest character possible, but I also love having flaws in my PCs. Be it quick temper, cluelessness, too good for her own good. Some of my PCs have been downright pure evil, to the point my party became the BBEGs and holy NPCs hunted us down. I've played many evil PCs, and my golden rule is I never take action against my own party. I dislike creating party hostility, but I love the idea of some party conflict, even if we have extreme viewpoints. So in this game, I'm playing a Fallen Aasimar Tempest Cleric. My good friend B was playing a Warlock, another friend played a Human Fighter. Max went through 9 PCs during levels 4 through 18. Now, I can understand not liking a PC sometimes, but I've never just wanted a new one because it's stronger at this level than other classes. That was sometimes his justification. Now, my biggest issue with this beginning part. I don't always do super good RP. I do try to give my PC connections to the other players and have a bond with them. I found it hard to even care about what Max's PC was, because I knew most likely he was going to change class when we leveled. This habit was constant from him, and my breaking point for playing in any game with him came one day. My friend B had lost his PC in the last encounter. A group of paladins hunted us down, so in the post-game chat he was looking at new characters to play. He mentioned for fun a gnome barbarian with decent intelligence still. In comes Max, who starts berating him and telling him just how stupid he is for wanting to play that. It's too ineffective and it's stupid to waste stats. You should actually play X because it's the strongest way to do that. Now, I've simplified this, of course. Player Max also had a habit of rules lawyering, and when he was wrong, he would kind of sulk when his character didn't get to do the coolest thing or the sneakiest thing. It was my breaking point personally. I've always encouraged people to play what makes them happy. I messaged my DM and told them that I can no longer play with Player Max. I told him what had happened and my list of grievances that had built up over time. I had already stated to him how he only wanted to play the most OP and always wanted to be the coolest player in the game. Pause post. So here we can already see the difference between a good power gamer and a bad one. Some people get less enjoyment out of roleplay and prefer to be really epic in combat. And that's okay. There are many ways to enjoy D&D, and if one thing doesn't speak to you, another will. Then there are min-maxing power gamers who need to be the most powerful. They must be the leader, command his party, and be the strongest. If someone else isn't the most optimized combatant, then they are purposefully dragging the team down. That mindset is much more of a sports, MMO, or a MOBA style of play, and it doesn't really mesh well with D&D, where creativity is king and hitting things isn't always the answer. A good takeaway from this is to know who you're playing with. Not every person is a good fit for every group. A great person for a roleplay heavy group might not be the best person for a combat heavy dungeon crawling team. Anyways, I'm beginning to ramble. Roll post. I sadly left, and it took a while to get a new game going, as no one else wanted to DM, so that's how I became the perma-DM. I will never understand why some people insist on trying to play everybody's character for them, like it's a single-player RPG. My biggest takeaway: I don't take kindly to people who try and force others into what to play. Everyone should play what makes them happy, and when I do have more maxes in my party who always want the spotlight, I will intentionally shine the spotlight away onto somebody else who may be feeling left out. While I find it karma, I do feel a little bad because I found out recently that Max was voted out of his in-person group of a long time. Because, you probably guessed, he kept telling everyone what to play and how to play during the game. End post. Well, it is unfortunate, but that's what happens when you're a bad player. If you mess with the group, you can't expect them to keep you around. Anyways, that's all of the stories I have today. But here are a couple more to my left. Till next time.